this is something that we wanted to cover actually for quite a while. We just haven't had a chance because everything else kind of pushed it out of the coverage. But I think this is funny. Diversity numbers among delegates trigger alarm at DNC meeting. So obviously the Democrats are already trying to get their delegates together for the convention over next summer. And senior officials, this is from Politico, senior officials at the Democratic National Committee are sounding the alarm that the committee is falling short of its own diversity goals. And they're warning that if current trends aren't changed, the delegates heading to next summer's convention will be too white when they gather next summer to officially renominate President Joe Biden.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. I keep looking at these diversity goals in big states like New York, like California, and for some reason, whether it's the African American community, Black community, the LGBTQ plus community, or Hispanic community, the numbers continue to decrease, Donna Brazile told her colleagues at a recent committee gathering in Washington, D.C. It raises a red flag in my judgment, she said in a follow-up interview about the delegate plans. And then I try to find out, what the hell is it? What could it be? Could it be that people are finally catching on that all your diversity worship is just a giant shell game? It's just a giant scam. It's just an excuse to rip them off financially. And even insofar as you preach diversity and racial equity, Biden is allowing Israel to commit a race-based genocide now in public. And any advice that they have to offer about how the Israelis should comply with international law, that's apparently going to be done in private, according to his own State Department.
In a Victorian drawing room.
Right. So maybe all this diversity worship, people are starting to finally realize it's a giant fucking scam, just like your entire party is a giant fucking scam. In interviews with half a dozen current and former DNC members, there was heightened concern that the delegates the party may end up sending to the convention next year won't be as diverse as they think it should be. They fear it reflects the difficulties of Biden's re-election campaign to retain support among Black and Latino voters, key voting blocks he needs if he wants another 4 years in the White House. We're kind of looking at each other like, hey, this number seems to be going in the wrong direction here, said Maria Cardona. The Democratic strategist.
I swear to God, this is all like a Christopher Guest sketch.
Oh, yeah. No, exactly. This is like a mockumentary. That's a quote from Maria Cardona, Democratic strategist who worked on Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Why does anybody who worked on Hillary's campaign still have a job this high up?
They fail up, man.
It's just unbelievable.
It's just a big fucking grift, and you ain't in it.
That's right. It seemed like the numbers for this cycle in some of the states are lower than from last cycle, said Cardona, who added that the DNC officials are still peeling that onion to get a fuller understanding of how deep the issue is. That trepidation is rooted in the mounting evidence that the party's grip on voters of color it enjoyed in recent cycles is weakening. While Biden still enjoys majority support from Black and Latinos, former President Donald Trump is cutting into those margins. Both a CBS News poll and a Quinnipiac University poll last month found Biden's support in the low 70s or 80s among Black voters. That is way too low. A drop from the 91% who voted for him in 2020. His numbers with Hispanic voters are worse. In the 2020 election, Biden enjoyed a 28-point margin with Hispanic voters. This is amazing. Those same recent polls showed his support down to a single-digit advantage. Wow. Single-digit advantage. The DNC calculates its diversity goals using a complex formula that accounts for eligible voters from 7 targeted groups: Blacks, Latinos, Asian American, and Pacific Islander, Indigenous Americans, as well as those with disabilities who identify as LGBTQ and young voters classified as 35 and under. Using public data like the census Bureau's American Community Survey, the DNC also factors in individual state party registration figures and how well those party-affiliated voters turn out to vote in primary elections. From there, the DNC provides suggested goals for individual state parties to meet. The state Democratic parties then submit their delegate diversity plans to the DNC for approval. Well, that sounds like an unbelievable waste of time. Like maybe you would get more Black and Latino support if instead of devising algorithms and logarithms to calculate what support you can expect for them in exchange for no policy solutions, maybe just try to do a little bit better job. Maybe try empowering them a little more along with everybody, and you'll do a little bit better. Look at this complex formula. You can just see them in the crunching the numbers.
Yeah, that's it. If you look at this, the person writing the article is in the same bubble, so they don't realize they're giving up the game. They don't see what's wrong with the entire premise. The whole thing is describing, rather than to sit down and they don't mention policy once in that entire article.
Not
once. It's all about algorithms, data mining, right? Exactly. Well,
maybe less time scheming about how to trick them into voting for you. Right. And more time convincing people to vote for you. What
have you done for them?
Right.
What have you done for them? Can you honestly say that you did more for them than Donald Trump did? You really can't. You really can't.
Of course not.
He secured funding for historically Black colleges and universities for the first time, permanent funding. He undid, and this is a hard one to dance around, he undid some of the sentencing guidelines created by the current president, collaborating with his segregationist buddies. So it was It was the New York Times that did that article that interviewed people in the Black community about why they didn't vote for Hillary.
Correct.
In 2016, that was the Times.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, none of them were like, yeah, I love Trump. They were like, well, what would Hillary do for us? Obama didn't do anything for us. So why would we go and vote? They didn't go vote for Trump. They just didn't vote. And that's what you'll get with a lot of these. And, the fact that, every month or so, Biden says something like, you ain't Black if you don't vote for me, or, Black kids are just as smart, poor kids are just as smart as white kids. That doesn't help when you combine it with the fact, and this is what's really also revealing about this kind of a take. They don't seem to realize that Black and brown people are people, right? They're just people. They are subject to the same economic realities and sense that the country is spiraling out of control as white people. Your argument that they're going to be much, much worse off under Republicans is just wearing thin with, actually, if you look at the numbers with the Black community, it's not as catastrophic as it should be, to my mind, based on the reality. It's remarkable how much of that community the Democrats are able to hold in the face of their absolute failure to deliver.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, all of the hypocrisies of the Democrats on racial issues, whether it's incarceration or border policy, obviously, Biden's been much worse from a humanitarian standpoint on the border than even Trump. And so even setting those aside, if you really want to do an analysis of why, despite 8 years of hand-wringing about how the GOP is becoming this white nationalist, white nativist party, as you hand-wring about that, the GOP gets more diverse and the Democrats get whiter. Right. That can be explained through a very simple analysis of the class makeup of the party. Right. The Republican Party has gotten more working class over the past 8 years. The Democratic Party has gotten more PMC. The working class is more racially and ethnically diverse than the PMC. Right? Richer people skew whiter, poorer people skew more diverse. And so there it is right there. It can be explained very simply through that lens. Of course, that's another lens. That's another angle from which they just simply refuse to look at it.
Well, and also, yes, they're a PMC party and their concerns are concerns of the PMC. When we had Stephanie and Lisa on discussing the trans documentary about trans youth, one of the points Lisa kept making is that this was a fixation of the PMC class. She kept saying people of my class are obsessed with this. And it's true. And that doesn't reflect the priorities and values of most voters. So a lot of times, they'll do these polls showing, well, people don't really care about wokeness as a vindication of the Democrats. But actually, that works against them because they're obsessed with issues that broadly fall under that term as it's commonly understood. So if that's what you're leading with and people don't care about it, why would they vote for you? Why would they get behind you? That works against you if they don't care about it.
Please clap.